please.
So welcome back, everyone. My next guest has been on with me a couple of times now before. I have Sam Sorrenson. Sam, you got to tell everybody what you do.
Well, I'm Carol. I'm first of all, I'm glad to be here. I'm an industrial real estate broker in Phoenix, so I deal with those big boxes you see along the freeway.
Well, here's the deal. When you come on the show, it's really interesting because, first of all, how long have you been doing this?
27 years.
27 years of these big boxes that you sell. But it's so interesting. I love listening to you because it's very, very different. Go ahead.
It is. I mean, industrial real estate is different. As I said, what do you do? Well, it's we deal with industrial real estate, which are basically big boxes for the most part. And our market is really divided into two markets, which is warehousing, which is basically what you see along the freeway or when you go into Costco. That's basically a warehouse store.
It's a box.
It's a box. I mean, people ask me what I do. I say take a shoe box from the closet, flip it upside down, put it on the kitchen table. It's a box.
And you have to fill it.
You have to fill it, and each box has different attributes and different assets that it brings to the transaction. So, but anyway, we deal with different types of real estate, and those are warehouses where you store your Cheerios, your Frosted Flakes, your Campbell's soup, your nuts, your bolts, your wrenches, and so on and so forth. You stack them as high as you can, and you have these buildings can be 100,000, 500,000, 1 million square feet. And basically, the function of those buildings is to have lots and lots of trucks come in, put all their information, all their inventory in there, stack them up as high as they can, and then eventually all that inventory goes back out to the warehouse and to stores and retail places and so on and so forth. So we deal with warehouses, and then we also deal with manufacturing facilities. And manufacturing facilities are usually different. They don't have that tall ceiling. They might have a 12-foot ceiling or an 18-foot ceiling, but they usually have power. They have doors sometimes where the trucks actually drive into the building to take care of their inventory. And what are you doing? You're basically making stuff. You're making your widgets. They can be metal warehouses. They can be fabrication facilities, but manufacturing facilities of all different types, plastics and so on and so forth. So those are really the two basic markets, and that's what industrial real estate is it's working with those types of buildings, and that's what's going on.
Now, you do a free consultation. You got to.
Right.
You have to find out what their needs are, right?
Oh, definitely. And every building is different. Every client is different. It's like we used to say, it's like industrial real estate. As Forrest Gump's mother said, industrial real estate's like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get. And so you have to talk with your client. You have to find out what they need the building for. What attributes do they need? Do they need ceiling height? Do they need a certain type of loading? Are they going to have trucks that back up where you drive a forklift into the truck? Or are you going to have a building where they drive the truck right in? Ceiling, how much power do you need? What zoning do you need? What location do you need? And so on and so forth. Maybe outside storage. So you'll talk to your client. He will tell you. I mean, he was going to, lay it out for you. He might be in a certain facility right now, and you just walk around and say, okay, I see this works. This doesn't work for me. I need more of this. I need less of that. And so you talk with him. You go through the building. You go through his needs. And eventually, you're going to find out what he needs. And then you're going to go out to the marketplace and start looking for a building that matches those needs. And that's your job. Your job is to find a building that matches his needs so that he could forward the action of his business. And that's really how, it basically lays out 1, 2, 3.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that. These things do not just happen overnight. They take a little time.
Well, they do, and when you are a commercial real estate broker, it's not a sprint. It's kind of more of a marathon, because when you go out to find a building, you have to find a building. Again, this is your client's business. This is how he takes care of his family. So you have to find a building that really works with his business, and again, will forward the action of his business. So you out there in the market, you've got to find a building. You've got to find a building that meets his price needs. And then you start negotiating. So you negotiate a building. Now, when you do that, you're going to bring in, obviously, the other side. Sometimes you bring in attorneys, and you go through this negotiation process. Again, your market knowledge is going to come in. And you're going to say, look, we can pay this, but we're not going to pay that. We can do this, but we're not going to do that. And so you're going to focus and bring everything to a crystal point so that you can service your client and get him the best bang for the buck. And that's, one of the things you do. Now, even then, that's just the beginning. I mean, it's just begun.
I'm sure.
Because then what you do is when you've negotiated and you've gone to contracts, and sometimes, their lawyer's looking at them and your lawyer's looking at them, and then you go to escrow, then, of course, there are other events that have to happen. You have to get an environmental report. So you have to know about certain environmental companies, how to work with them. Maybe you recommend a couple, and bring an environmental report. So he checks that building out, makes sure that building, is clean, and so on and so forth, and meets certain guidelines. To the report that we use is called a Phase 1 report. So it has to meet certain guidelines on that. Then financing. What are we going to do? Are we buying it? Are we going to get a bank loan? So on and so forth. So you have to kind of bring some banks into the situation. Then make sure the building meets, zoning requirements. I mean, can I do my business here? So, those types of things. And then maybe contractors. Maybe I'm going to have to build something. Maybe I have to put more power in. So I'm going to have to know, what contractors, who to work with, who these guys are good to work with. Here's a couple lists of guys, and so on and so forth. So lots of different pieces that we have to bring in, and then we have to coordinate. So nothing is going to happen with that transaction until the lawyers agree, the Phase 1s agree, the appraisal comes in, the contractor says everything else, the roof is working okay, the power is going to be good, the zoning is okay. All these things have to be shepherded to a point where a transaction happens. And at the end of the day, the lawyers aren't going to do it. And the guys doing the Phase 1s are not going to do it. The broker is going to have to shepherd all those different pieces, moving in all those different directions, to a point where everyone comes to an agreement, and then a transaction can take place.
Wow. For one person to do that, it seems like a lot of maneuvering and a lot to handle. I mean, I have to say this, you're in real estate, but it's obviously different. It's industrial.
Industrial real estate, that's correct.
When you think about this, when I have real estate agents that just sell homes, they have a whole army with them who have to get this, and this done. It's one home.
One home.
Right?
Yeah.
For you, it's a huge box or whatever it is, and you do it all yourself?
Well, I do. I mean, but you've done this before, so you know how that environmental report is. 27 years. So you kind of have an idea. Okay, this is going to work this way. This is going to work this way. This is going to take so much time. Well, let's get the environmental report in 3 days. No. That's going to take at least 2 weeks. Well, I'll get the appraisal in 4 days. No. That can take 10 days. So you're going to know.
Nothing happens right away. No way.
Happens. Well, I mean, to do a what we call a feasibility period, where you have a certain period of time to get all this done, 45 days, 60 days, 2 months. So you have that period of time. You have a list. You have a list in that file, and it has all these items, and you're checking on them. So every couple of days, you're calling the environmental company. You're calling the attorneys. You're coordinating all these things, again, to come to a crystal point where a transaction may take place. So you are shepherding a lot of different interests to a point where everyone agrees, everyone provides the proper information, and then we go forward.
Okay. Of the boxes that are out there, okay, on both sides, because we're going to talk 30 minutes here. So I want to talk before we go to a break. I want to ask you, are there a lot of boxes out there that, because there's a lot of people that come in here to Arizona that are relocating that you end up, I'm sure, helping them, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give your phone number out in a minute, but are there a lot of boxes?
Well, there are a lot of boxes. As a matter of fact, I looked. We have a service that we use and we rely on called CoStar, and I looked at it this morning. We have over 300 million square feet of industrial real estate in the Phoenix market.
Wow,
that's a lot.
That is a lot. You would never
lot.
know that's how much there is. But then again, I guess I see a lot of boxes out there. So I guess
Well, you see a lot of boxes.
I didn't realize it's that much.
A lot of those boxes are tucked way back in industrial parks that you'll never see. Because they're off the beaten path. They're not, right on Indian School or right on Camelback or by the Biltmore, obviously. but and you have just, as I say, millions of square feet off the beaten path, way out in Southwest Phoenix, south of I-10, north of I-10, and way out in Chandler and so on and so forth. So, yes, there's a tremendous amount of square footage. But the good news is, as far as the market's concerned, our inventory, our vacancy rate has been going down. So we're about 11.6% now. So it's healthy. It's not, it's booming, but it's good. It's a good market. We've had a lot of absorption in this market, though most of it has been done in leasing and not as much as in sales as it was maybe 10 years ago.
Let me give out your phone number. It is 602-256-9155. His website is sorrensonandblack.com. We'll be back in just a minute.
if I traded it all, if I gave it all away.
Welcome back. We're talking with Sam Sorrenson. He is the owner of Sorrenson and Black, and we are talking about industrial real estate. But there's a lot of cool stories that you have, and we want to get to them, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, I like to talk about stories on what we provide. At the end of the day, what really a broker provides, a professional broker provides, is good information to a client. That's the keystone to the whole process. So one story I'd like to tell is a client of mine. She had a business. She had a nice property of about 26,000 square feet on 3 acres, and she had a nice family business. And she calls me one day, and she says, Sam, I just want to say hello and just kind of let you know kind of what's going on. And we chit-chat, and she says, I want you to know that I got an offer from the city of Phoenix. Now, her property abutted a large complex that was owned by the city of Phoenix. And she said, and they offered me, $1.9 million for this property, which is more than what she had bought it for. So I just want to call and let you know kind of what I'm doing. And I said, I think her name was Sharon. And I said, Sharon, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take that piece of paper. You're going to slide it to the very far end of your desk. And you're going to slide it all the way to the left-hand corner. Listen, you're not going to pick up a pen. You're not going to get out of your chair. You're not going to pass go. You're not going to collect $200. You're not going to do a thing until I get there. Don't move until I get there. So I hopped in my automobile and sped over to her office. And we sat down, and I said, look, I know right now there are several buyers in the market, guys that I know working with, who need this property right here. And I know that we can get at least $200,000 more for it. So I said, look, here's the point. Most real estate listings can be 6 months to a year. I don't want that. Just give me 2 months. That's all I want. 2 months. So we listed it, put it 2 months, called the guys, came out. We had several offers on this property. Now, the bottom line is simply this. She was going to sell it for $1.9 million, close out the business, retire, and ride out into the sunset. We sold it for $2.4 million. That's $500,000. So because of the knowledge that I had and the context that I had and the information I had, I was able to take her property from $1.9 million to $2.4 million in less than 2 months. What is it? It's simply information, and that's what we bring to the table. And she was absolutely thrilled. I mean, my back hurt sometimes from some of the hugs I got when I went over there because she was very happy and she was able to retire.
That's what 27 years also gives you. That's what you bring to the plate.
You can't help but pick up on things and then meet the guys. I mean, we're guys and girls who work in this business, and you talk and you say, hey, listen, Sam, I got a guy who really needs this property. I don't have it right now. Well, all of a sudden, boom, I've got it. And I call him and I said, hey, here it is. And then another guy wanted the same thing. Well, all of a sudden, kind of came a little bit bidding war maybe. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, my client walked away with $500,000 more than what she had gotten if she hadn't made that phone call.
Well, no, she made that call for a reason.
She sure did.
She knew you beforehand, and she knew you knew, and this came to the plate for her, and she just said, you know what, I'm just going to give Sam a call.
Yes.
And that's how that came up.
Yes. And another situation that happened was, you remember the hailstorm. So we all remember that monster storm.
I was driving here in it.
Oh, man. And but anyway, it damaged a lot of real estate. And I had a client I was working with, 65,000 square foot building. He owned the building. He was out of town. He did not live in Arizona, and his tenant was out of town for like that week. So I'm working with him, and he wants me to sell this building. Well, the roof was a sieve. I mean, when it rained, it just was a mess. And finally, we had a meeting with a roofing contractor. I belong to the Arizona Commercial Brokers Association, which is a group of professional industrial brokers. And we had some roofers come and speak to us, and they gave us some insurance maps that showed the path of each hail part of the storm, their destructive path. And it was marked in red stripes on this map. It was easy to see. And I looked and I said, boom, this client of mine with the roof that leaked like a sieve, right in the middle of that red stripe. And I called him. And I said, do you realize that your building was hit by this hailstorm? No. Did the tenant tell you? No. Okay, so got him hooked up with a couple of roofing contractors. And at the end of the day, we got, and he could not afford a new roof. It was just, it was just kind of tight with money. And he just, he couldn't afford a new roof. So at the end of the day, he got a $1.5 million roof on this building because, again, we were able to provide information to him that obviously he would never have. And so, again, that's another part of the information that we can bring to the table. I had several other clients of mine that I did help coordinate get new roofs because this hailstorm was was just devastating. I mean, I saw it. I was in South Phoenix when it came over the Australian mountains, and I tell people when I saw the storm coming over, I said, do you remember Independence Day when that flying saucer was coming? You didn't see it yet, but you saw the cloud and all the lightning bolts. I said, that's what that looked like when it just flowed. It was like a waterfall flowing over the Australias. And I was with a client then, and we hopped in our cars, and we headed to a warehouse we knew we could drive into, because I've never seen anything like it.
I didn't either, and I was driving on the freeway, and it started happening. I was just starting to get on, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I could not believe it. It was like snow, but it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. So, I mean, those are some of the things we've done. We've also repositioned real estate. So as the market changed and industrial real estate changed, I've taken, we don't have as many steel fabrication businesses in the valley as we used to have, but I've taken some properties that have a large land area and a fabrication facility, and we've positioned a couple of those where now we've sold them to companies that recycle cars. So we've taken a property that functioned for many, many years and was built for a certain industry, and we've repositioned that now to service a different industry. So that's another part of the information we can bring. We can see what's happening in the market and then match properties, excuse me, that one time performed in a certain way. Now we can take them and reposition them so they can go in a different direction.
Sure. Now, the people that you work with, that when he's about that hailstorm, and you said, did you know that your building was destroyed by the roof?
Roof was destroyed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was out of town.
Yeah.
He doesn't live here, and there's probably a lot of people that you work with that are out of town.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, one of the other companies, it was a 135,000 square foot roof, and he's a client of mine in Beverly Hills. And of course, I was with that building, and that building is an interesting building, but that building had 65 skylights in it. And after the hailstorm, you walked into they were old, they were plexiglass, not real glass, but they were old. So when you walked into that building, it just looked like snow. It was just snow all over the floor because everything was shattered. Every skylight in the building was shattered. So, I mean, he got new skylights, he got a new roof, he got, several other things. But, so, yeah, I mean, and again, he lives in Beverly Hills. So, but I was working in that building, and obviously he got a call from me immediately the next day. So, again, providing timely information to a client can make, all the difference in the world on different things. And again, repositioning a client. I had a group from Australia we negotiated on a 600,000 square foot warehouse down in Yuma that was used by Walmart. And we repositioned that warehouse that was used, again, in Yuma to service and warehouse the Southern California market. And he bought this thing that building would be about $45, $50 to build. He bought it for $5 a square foot. $40 a square foot, $5 a square foot.
Big difference.
So he can compete in that market, in the Southern California market, and he's as happy as a clam.
Here's another question I have real quickly because I have it on here that we have some time here to do. How can governmental services help your clients?
Well, one thing we're doing in Arizona is we're trying to bring new companies into the valley, okay? And that's where you work with the economic development groups, the Arizona Commerce Authority, GPEG, the Greater Phoenix Economic Development Group, and then the local municipalities.
How do you help bring them in there? Here.
Well, what we do is, a lot of it's just, sometimes word of mouth. Sometimes they get on a database where my information is, and they call me about a particular building. And so if it's a company that's coming into a certain area, they have a certain amount of employees. There are certain tax breaks for training employees, helping employees, and so on and so forth. Obviously, the economic development groups, if they bring a huge company in, they're going to garner a lot of attention, and they want to, they're working very hard to bring industry into Arizona, especially from Southern California. But I brought a pipe manufacturing company in from Las Vegas, and we did that. We coordinated that with the economic development group at the city of Phoenix, and they were very helpful.
It helps our state.
It helps our economy. And then I worked with a medical supply manufacturer, actually a medical device manufacturer from Wisconsin, bringing them into the valley. And then I worked with other situations. I worked with a group, American National Can and Waste Management, on a large recycling project in Arizona. And that was all through the GPEC, the economic development groups. So that's a service that you can bring to someone once they're coming to the valley. They're coming in. It's a brave new world for some, especially an individual, to pick up a business, from L.A. or from Las Vegas and move it here and say, okay, I'm I'm starting fresh. I have a broker, I may have an attorney, I have these other pieces, but then the economic development people can come in and also lend a hand. So it is part of your job to help coordinate that as well.
He does free consultations with people. You certainly have to do that. You can check him out on his website. It is SorrensonandBlack.com. His phone number is area code 602-256-9155. What are your final words?
Well, industrial real estate is happening, and I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, or just, if people just ask me what's going on, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you and let you know what's going on in the marketplace.
Again, that number is area code 602-256-9155. The website is SorrensonandBlack.com, and you do free consultations with everyone. He's happy to talk to you. He's very educational to listen to. It's awesome. It's 27 years doing this. It's 602-256-9155.